They say it is better to be poor and happy than rich and sad. This is a common saying, but what happens when a fairy tale becomes a gilded cage? For Diana, Princess of Wales, the dream of marrying a prince turned into a lonely reality. Her story is not just about royalty, it's about a woman trying to find her voice in a world that wanted her to be silent. It all started in 1981 when a shy 20-year-old Diana Spencer married Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne. The world watched a spectacular wedding, believing it was the beginning of a perfect life. But behind the palace walls, a different story was unfolding. Diana felt isolated and overwhelmed. The strict rules of the royal family were suffocating, and the constant attention from the media was a heavy burden. The biggest problem, however, was in her marriage. Prince Charles was distant, and his heart belonged to another woman, Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana felt trapped and powerless. She later described her wedding day with a heartbreaking quote, "I felt I was a lamb to the slaughter." For years, she suffered in silence, battling depression and an eating disorder. The world saw a beautiful princess, but inside, she was a young woman crying out for help. By the early 1990s, she knew she could not be silent any longer. She decided to do something unthinkable, something that would break every royal rule. She decided to tell her own story. Through a trusted friend, Dr. James Colthurst, she began to secretly record her thoughts and feelings on cassette tapes. These recordings were for a journalist named Andrew Morton. In the quiet rooms of Kensington Palace, speaking softly into a microphone, Diana finally began to reclaim her narrative, one secret tape at a time. It was a dangerous gamble, but it was the first step towards her own freedom. The release of the book Diana, Her True Story in 1992 was like an earthquake shaking the foundations of the British monarchy. For the first time, the public heard about the princess's unhappiness, her struggles with bulimia, and the cold reality of her marriage to Prince Charles. The book, based entirely on her secret tapes, was a bombshell. The royal family was furious, and the palace went into crisis mode. They tried to deny the stories and discredit Diana, painting her as unstable and manipulative. This was the beginning of her greatest struggle. She was now fighting against one of the most powerful families in the world, and she was doing it alone. Many people in the establishment turned against her, and the media, which had once adored her, became a battlefield of opinions. Despite the intense pressure, something remarkable happened. By speaking out, Diana found a new strength. She realized her voice had power. She poured her energy into her charity work, focusing on causes that were often ignored. She famously shook the hand of an AIDS patient without wearing gloves, challenging the widespread fear and stigma surrounding the disease. She walked through active landmine fields in Angola, bringing global attention to the deadly legacy of war. She was connecting with ordinary people in a way no royal had before. She once said, "I think the biggest disease the world suffers from in this day and age is the disease of people feeling unloved." She understood this feeling perfectly, and she dedicated her life to making others feel seen and valued. This work became her solution, her purpose. She was no longer just the wife of a future king. She was becoming the queen of people's hearts. Her marriage eventually ended in divorce in 1996, but her struggle had transformed her into a global humanitarian icon. After the divorce, Diana was finally free from the royal cage, but she found herself in a different kind of prison, the prison of fame. The media's obsession with her became more intense than ever. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, their camera flashes a constant, blinding presence. She was one of the most famous women in the world, but all she wanted was a normal life, a moment of privacy. In the summer of 1997, it seemed she might have found a new happiness. She was in a relationship with Dodi Fayed, and pictures of them vacationing on a yacht filled newspapers and magazines. But this happiness was fragile, always under the relentless gaze of the cameras. The hunt for a picture of the couple became a dangerous, high-stakes game. On the night of August 30, 1997, this deadly game reached its tragic conclusion in Paris. Attempting to escape a group of chasing paparazzi, Diana's car sped into the Pont de l'Ama tunnel. The driver lost control and the car crashed violently into a concrete pillar. The news sent a shockwave across the globe. The People's Princess was gone. In the chaotic moments after the crash, a firefighter named Xavier Gourmelon was one of the first to help. He didn't recognize her at first. He held her hand and told her to be calm. He saw that she had a slight injury to her shoulder and thought she would survive. Just before she lost consciousness, Diana looked at him and asked a simple human question. "My God, what's happened?" Those were her final words. They were not a grand statement, but a whisper of confusion from a woman whose life ended in chaos. The secret tapes had been her first step to telling her story. In the end, her tragic death left the world with a question that echoed her own final words, a question we still ask today.